Grace and peace. Welcome to Judah's Roar Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative YouTube channel. I am your host, Apostle Cheryl. Now, before we get started, I want you to take a look down here at the bottom below the video. Make sure you subscribe if you've not done so already. That's one of the ways that you can partner with us. And then make sure you click the bell for notifications. And that way you'll receive a notice every time we upload a new video at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay. Also, don't forget to like the video. Give us a thumbs up. Okay. And share the video. You can share the video even as you are viewing the video. Now listen, if you get a notice from us that we're going to be in the live chat and you're not able to join us at that time, then feel free to just share the link as soon as you get it on all of your social media platforms. And then you come back and view it at your earliest convenience. Thank you for taking the time to address those things. Now, we are embarking on a new series about depression. Depression and domestic violence are so intertwined, so intermingled, that depression permeates a domestic violence situation, okay? And so we're going to look at depression, but in this first segment, we're going to be looking at sadness, grief, and depression. What's the difference? Sadness, grief, and depression. What's the difference? And that's going to be our focus in segment 1. Now, the World Health Organization has stated that over 264 million people are affected by depression worldwide. Over 264 million people are affected by depression worldwide. It is the most common mental health condition. So it's very, very common. And there's still stigma attached to mental illness or having a mental health condition. And it's improved, I think, over the years since I entered the field over 30 years ago. But there's still somewhat of a stigma attached to it. And we don't want you to be ashamed or embarrassed if you struggle with this. We want you to know that there is hope and there is treatment out there. But now, let's look at our focus for this video. This video, we're talking about sadness, grief, and depression. And what's the difference? Okay, so sadness, according to the American Psychological Association, because, I like for us to all have the same working definition, okay, is a state of unhappiness that usually comes after a loss, okay? It's an emotion that subsides over time. So sadness is normal to experience that on the heels of a loss, but it tends to subside over time, and it's an emotion. It's a feeling, okay? Grief, on the other hand, is a natural response to loss, as is sadness, but it's experienced in stages, and it takes longer to resolve, okay? It's not one-dimensional. There are either 5 or 7 stages, depending on what school of thought you embrace. Mental health professionals differ. Some say 5, some say 7. But if we're talking about 5 stages and you're talking about shock and denial, bargaining, anger, acceptance, okay? And so these are stages that are experienced in grief. And grief is a process. It's not just one succinct emotion or feeling like sadness is. So it's a process and it takes time. And here's the thing, you can't rush it. There's no rushing it. You cannot rush the grief process and grieve effectively. Okay. And so you may not experience, if you're dealing with the grief, you may not experience it stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. You may experience stage 1, stage 2. You may skip 3 and go to 4, come back to 3, go to 5, or some other order. Okay. So it's not something that we can control, and it's not something that we can rush. And as opposed to being a single emotion, such as sadness, it is experienced in stages. And for each of us, that process may look a little different. Okay. Grief can become prolonged or complicated. And if we avoid it, if we try to avoid grief, if we try to bury it, suppress it, it can become really, really problematic for us. And it retards our recovery. It impedes our ability to recover from that loss that we experienced. And therefore, it has a negative impact on how we kind of process and move through the rest of our life. Now, moving on, it's important to understand that clinical depression is different from grief or sadness, okay? And so in order to be clinically depressed, there has to be a series of symptoms that have prevailed. And so this is an ongoing struggle that is being experienced. And you need to be seen by a mental health professional in order to be accurately diagnosed, because there's so many different facets to depression. There are so many different subtypes and so many different criteria. And it's important to be diagnosed accurately. Why? Because that will inform the treatment plan that is developed for you. Clinical depression permeates, it pervades every corner of a person's life and existence when they are struggling with it. It interferes with our work. It interferes with school. It interferes with our ability to focus and concentrate. It interferes with our desire to focus and concentrate. It negatively impacts our relationships with others, and impacts our desire to even be in relationship with others. It impacts our energy level and our ability to bring the proper energy to a situation in order to address it effectively in our day-to-day lives. So even a person who's dealing with depression may appear to be fine at work, but when they get home, they crash and burn. When they get home, it's like they don't have anything else to give anybody else for any reason. They just cannot. They can't do people. They can't do decision making. They can't do interacting, anything that's going to require more energy, because they have utilized every last bit of energy that they had to just get through the day and to keep that mask up, to keep that facade up, okay? And so one indicator of depression is just mental exhaustion. And some people describe it almost as a physical weight. They feel weighted down. They feel like they're in the dark, or they don't feel anything at all emotionally. They feel numb. No longer finding joy or release in the things that once brought us pleasure, things that we used to love to do, and now it's just like, whatever, okay? Feeling apathetic, like nothing's really a big deal. Nothing really can reach you or touch you or cause you to feel anything. You're just kind of coasting through life. You're not feeling anything. You're not emotionally connected to anything or to anyone. And we call that anhedonia, when there was something that you once enjoyed that brought you pleasure, that helped to keep you in a positive frame of mind, no longer does that for you. It's an overarching sense of hopelessness. And one definition of hope that I've come to embrace over the past few months, because I think it's so powerful, is this: hope is the belief, the understanding that things can get better than what they are right now, and that you have the power, that I have the power to make it so. That somehow I can make this happen. So when we are experiencing depression, clinical depression, there's this overarching hopelessness. And so there's none of that. There's no belief that things will get better, really. And there's no conviction that you have the power, or that I have the power to impact that and to make it so. You've heard me say before, if you followed us, that the scripture says in Proverbs that hope deferred makes the heart sick. That hope, when it is put off, hope when it is dismissed, when it's out of reach, makes us heart sick. So it's effectively saying that it causes us to become depressed. when we don't have hope. Now, right, what are some indicators of depression? If, when I share this list of symptoms with you, this is something that you've experienced for a period of 2 weeks or more, then you might want to consider that depression may very well be an issue. And I want to encourage you to seek out professional help, okay? Seek out professional help. Number one, ongoing feelings of loneliness or sadness. Ongoing feelings of loneliness, being isolated, being discouraged, um, being despondent, okay? And if you experience this for 2 weeks or more, then it's really kind of concerning. A lack of energy. A lack of energy, more of a lack of energy than even makes sense to you. When it doesn't make any sense that you're as fatigued and drained as you are. And this goes on for a period of 2 weeks or more, then that's something that really you want to take a second look at, okay? Feelings of hopelessness. We've talked about hope and the importance of having hope as we navigate life, and that if it's deferred, then it makes us heartsick. It causes depression. Sleeping too much, or sleeping too little can be indicators. Eating too much, eating too little is another indication. Difficulty maintaining your focus or your concentration. For example, you're at work and there's a task that you do every day, but you have to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it because you can't start and finish and stay focused and stay on task. And so you may find that things are taking much longer than they typically do for you to complete them. Or when they are completed, they aren't completed as well as you normally complete them. That would be an indication that something is challenging your ability to focus and to concentrate, okay? Again, loss of interest in things that used to bring you joy, whether you used to enjoy painting or sketching or hiking. For me, it's kickboxing. I absolutely love kickboxing. Exercising, running, reading, going to Bible study, participating in a book club, being a member of a bowling team, whatever it is that used to bring you pleasure and used to bring you joy, and it no longer fills that need for you. And it could also be that you just don't even have the energy. You cannot summon the energy to engage in these activities. But if you do summon the energy, they're not enjoyable anymore. It's kind of like whatever. Okay. A loss of interest in socializing, even with those that you normally have a great camaraderie with, feeling like you don't have the energy to be around people, like feeling depleted. And then, of course, thoughts of death that are intrusive, thoughts of death or suicide, thoughts of self-harm, feelings of like self-loathing, feeling guilty, feeling worthless. These are all very concerning emotions, okay? And we want to encourage you, again, to reach out in the event that you are having any thoughts of harming yourself. Certainly if you're having any thoughts of harming someone else, then reach out. You can call 911. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We're going to provide all these numbers at the end of the video. So stay tuned to the end so that you and talk to your support system. Let people know how you're feeling. Let your primary care physician know. Let your mental health professional, your therapist, your counselor, your psychiatrist, your psychologist, let them know. But certainly call 911 if you find yourself in dire straits and feeling exceptionally hopeless. Go to a hospital emergency room. Okay, so there's help out here. There's help out here. And what we want you to know and understand is that there is life after abuse. There is life after depression. It is treatable. There are things that can be done. There are supports that can be put in place to help you navigate it if this is what you're experiencing in this time, or if someone that you know or you care about is experiencing it. Okay? What have we been talking about? This is segment 1 in a series about depression. And we've talked about sadness, grief, and depression. And what's the difference? We've also talked about some indicators that depression may in fact be an issue. And we've shared with you that the World Health Organization has stated that upwards of 264 million people are affected by depression. Okay, this is Apostle Cheryl with Judah's Roar Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative. We hope that this video has been helpful to you. Stay tuned for our next two segments where we'll be talking more in depth about depression. We're going to talk about risk factors, what makes us vulnerable to depression, what causes us to be predisposed to experiencing depression in our lives. And we're going to also talk about the different types of depression. Again, this is Apostle Cheryl, the Judah's Roar Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative. You be safe out there. Blessings to you.